the anarchists believe that everybody has to be an angel. I agree with that in order for it to work.
The minarchists and the anarchists.
Wait. And you also said that the people that believe in limited government also think that everybody has to be an angel, but limited government can work fine without everybody being an angel. You just have to have a substantial amount of people committed to limited government, and it works fine. It's not dependent on everybody believing in the non-initiation of physical force, or on not believing in redistribution of wealth, and not believing in violating people's rights and victimless crimes. So it's not a requirement for it to work fine. You can have limited government policies without having everybody on board with this. That's the difference that I see.
You can have those policies, and I'm not convinced that they won't be corrupted over time by virtue of the processes of concentrated benefits, dispersed costs, a la Mansur-Olson, or rent-seeking behavior, a la James Buchanan and Gordon Tullock. In other words, if somebody has the opportunity to use power to benefit themselves in a certain way, or to have power, or to expand their power, they will. We can talk about checks and balances and things that will help mitigate this problem, transparency mechanisms and so on, and I would much prefer to live in that state of affairs than the one we live in now. But I'm just saying that as an idealized endpoint, I don't think it makes much sense to talk about it. I'd rather talk about how you overcome the problem of concentrated benefits, dispersed costs, by using networking technologies that flip that phenomenon on its head. So you get stuff like Lyft and Uber that have concentrated cost dispersed benefits in the face of government power and entrenched cartels.
But Uber is working inside the framework of governments. It's not working inside the framework of anarchism.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's got its own governance structure.
Every time, sometimes they shut them down. In various governments, in other governments permit them to operate. They depend on governments to operate. In other words, they could be shut.
They don't depend on governments to operate. They're bringing governments to heel because so many constituent groups have been established in so many municipalities where they're going to get their tossed out on their butts because people love Lyft and Uber. That's by virtue of networking technology that this is now, for the first time in human history, really possible. Quiet revolutions.
I'm hopeful that this would be the outcome, but obviously the politicians don't have to respond to the public pressure. They can go ahead and do something different. But all of that is in the framework.
They have to become autocrats.
The point is very simple. Uber has to follow the law because there's a law, there's governments, and the governments pass laws, and if the government smartly or stupidly, I would say stupidly, want to eliminate Uber, Uber's finished. They don't have any way of stopping that. But I want to get back to your previous point, which is that there are dynamics in which they create corruption in government and people getting certain advantages in certain ways and certain negative incentives to do the wrong thing. That's true. These things do, but the point is, can they be stopped? Can they be thwarted? Can they be brought back? And
those are far more interesting questions to me than the ideal endpoint.
And so, well, the issue about the ideal endpoint is really the issue of political theory. So, and we said before that on the journey in the direction of freedom, the limited government people and the anarchists should obviously cooperate. But it is an interesting question from a political theory point of view, which is, what is the ideal? What should you go past? Let's say we're traveling in the right direction towards freedom and you get to limited government. You say, well, forget that. Go to government, no government. Go past that and just go to no government. And this is one of the problems I find with the anarchists, which is that they seem to be mentally lazy because they come to this conclusion. Anything the government does is bad. All governments are bad. The only thing they're illegitimate, they're wrong. So they don't have to think through any public policy. They just said, the government did it. It's not legitimate, it's wrong.
I
And
don't
so-
find that compelling either, honestly.
So
I say so what? I mean, to anyone who has this sort of idealized version, you know, short of saying we ought to aspire to move towards that and call it a day, I say so what? I mean, I would just say to the idealist minarchist or the idealist anarchist, so what? The fact once you acknowledge that there are two forces in this world that matter, persuasion and coercion. The rest is just an algorithm of these two forces. And once you acknowledge that, ideals are what we use to motivate us to move towards what we consider to be a better world. But beyond that,